Easter weekend. Today is Good Friday. Many people took a long weekend. Add to that right around the corner from us is March Madness going on in the AT&T Center. Add to that it's spring break. It's a time when people aren't paying attention to news. And it's a Friday afternoon. It's something I call Friday afternoon news dump. You'll see it occur on a regular basis. Friday afternoons when someone wants to release some bad news that they want to get buried so they can say, oh, we released it. It just must not have been reported on. They do it on a Friday afternoon. Boy, they touch all the bases. If that Friday afternoon's a holiday, call it Good Friday. If there's something else going on in the country that's dominating the news, call it March Madness. And if there's something going on in the lives of people that are consuming their time, call it spring break, you touch all the bases. Perfect time to release a bad story that you want to get buried. So this afternoon, about 5 o'clock, saw a story. The U.S. has agreed to send more bombs and warplanes to Israel. This is out of Washington. This is according to Reuters. It's also been on many news sites, including the Wall Street Journal. The U.S. in recent days authorized the transfer of billions of dollars worth of bombs and fighter jets to Israel. Two sources familiar with the effort said on Friday, even as Washington publicly expresses concerns about the anticipated Israeli military offensive in Rafah. New arms package includes a crap ton of bombs. That's according to the Washington Post. Washington gives about $4 billion a year annually in military assistance to Israel. It's a longtime ally. The package comes as Israel faces strong international criticism over its continued bombing campaign and ground offensive in Gaza, and as some members of the President Biden's party call for him to cut U.S. military aid. You see, last night the president was in New York with a big old fundraiser. There were protesters out and around Radio City Music Hall. In fact, the president was interrupted inside by a protester who was removed. You probably didn't see that story today because the national reporting news media doesn't want to show it to you. And that comes back to the mistrust of the national reporting news media. They are advocates for the Democratic Party. But Joe Biden has one job. It's commander-in-chief. His role is protect our national security. He has not protected our national security at the southern border. So what's he doing? He's authorizing more arms going over to support Israel. The pro-Palestinian folks across this country, if they'd known that, would have really raised hell. But see, it's a Friday afternoon news dump on a Friday afternoon at the end of the day when Americans' attention is turned towards spring break and NCAA March Madness and Easter. Happens all the time. You got to be aware of the national reporting news media breaking stories on Friday afternoons of holiday weekends when America's attention is turned somewhere else. That's when stories break, that they get buried. And if you didn't hear it from me, this would be something about a week down the road. You'd go, wait, what? When did that happen? Your Friday afternoon news day dump from Washington today. I'm married, Mrs. Westside Jeff. My name is Jeff, by the way, Westside Jeff. I'm in for Chris Krok. Chris is back on Monday. We have two daughters. Danielle, she still lives up in Columbus, Ohio. She's a physical therapist and married there. And youngest daughter, her birthday was Wednesday. She turned 24. Sydney. Sydney lives up in Knoxville, Tennessee. She went to college in that area. After graduation, she moved to Knoxville, has a roommate, stayed in Knoxville, loves it. Well, a good family friend of ours is starting running back for the last 4 years at University of Georgia Bulldogs, Kendall Milton. Kendall's a good friend of the family. And so Kendall gets 4 tickets for each game in the away games. And when the away games have occurred closer to where we are here in the area and areas that we could travel to, like Knoxville, Tennessee, University of Tennessee, because her daughter lives there. It gives us a chance to go up there, spend the weekend with her daughter, and go to the game. Kendall's given us a ticket. So we went to Knoxville for the Georgia-Tennessee game this year. We also went there 2 years ago. So the game this year in November, it was the weekend before Thanksgiving, was a 3:30 p.m. game on the East Coast, 2:30 here in Dallas. So it was a late game, and it was the late CBS game. So we went up to Knoxville, went to the game, and after the game, certainly Georgia beat the hell out of Tennessee because they're a really good team. After the game, we decided to go out for a bite to eat. Well, remember, in Knoxville, it was 3:30 start time. Here in Dallas, 2:30. The game ended about 6:30, 6:45. So I said to Mrs. Westside, Jeff, I love pizza. Let's find a pizza place. There's a pizza place we'd been to there before called Hard Knocks. I said, let's go there. So I picked up a phone and called, Hard Knocks. Nobody answered. Couldn't get any answers. And this was probably about, by now, 7:15, 7:30 p.m. I said, let's just drive over there. We drive over there. On the way over there, we call again a couple times. Finally, somebody answers the phone, and they said, we're closing. Like, wait a minute. It's 7:30 on a Saturday night. It's a big nationally televised football game. It's like the frickin' Super Bowl in Knoxville. People were in from around the country. Private jets were everywhere. Anybody who follows college football, that was the game of the week across college football. All the pregame shows were there, postgame shows were there, nationally known, ESPN, all the rest of them were there. It was a big, big game. Knoxville was on fire that weekend. So we're on our way to this pizza joint, 7:30 on a Saturday night after the big game. Get on the phone with them, and they tell us they're closing soon. So my wife says, what time do you close? They said 9. She said, wait a minute, it's only 7:30. That's an hour and a half from now. They said, yeah, we know, but we're not seating any more people because we're closing at 9. We're probably going to close a little early. And she's like, wait a minute. What? I got a problem with that. We can be there, and we're going to be there in 10 minutes. We just want to sit down and have a pie, have some salad. We'll be out of there by 9. And they said, no thanks. Sorry, but we're closing. My wife told me that, and I said, the hell with that. We're driving there. So we drove over. I get in the grill, the manager, I get in the grill, some of the people there, and said, wait a minute. Your door right here says you close at 9. It's 7:40 right now. That's an hour and 20 minutes. You have open tables right now. There's no reason why we can't be seated and dine here. Sorry, not going to do that. That pissed me off. I wanted pizza that night. I couldn't believe a restaurant was closing, was telling me an hour and 20 minutes before they close that they're closing. After that was said and done, we went somewhere else. Mrs. Westside ended up sending a scathing email to the owner of the company. The owner of the company eventually replied. I'll tell you what the owner said in about 4 minutes. My question to you is this. Is customer service still alive in restaurants? Every time I go, I'm not a fast food guy, but when I go to fast food places, they always get the order wrong. Is it alive? And when you have a bad experience in a restaurant, whether it be fast food or a regular sit-down restaurant, do you speak up? Would you speak up? Or have you acquiesced to the point that you expect it and you move on? I want to hear from you. 800-288-9227. 800-288-WBAP. Do you speak up at restaurants anymore, or do you just accept it? I'm also available across social media at Westside Jeff. 800-288-9227. 800-288-WBAP. Westside Jeff in for Chris Krok on News Talk 820 WBAP, and now on FM at 93.3. So customer service in restaurants. Do we just accept that it sucks sometimes and we move on? Do we not speak up? I was kind of prepared to that night, but Mrs. Westside Jeff said, no, I'm speaking up. Well, actually, I spoke up that night, but she ended up sending a note to the owner of the restaurant. It's called Hard Knocks. It's in Tennessee, in Knoxville. We were in Georgia. We were in, Tennessee, in Knoxville, where our daughter goes to or lives now. We went out. It was a big weekend, big sports weekend. Literally at 7:20, 7:15 at night, we're driving towards the restaurant, calling them, trying to see if we can get a table, reserve a table before we get there. Nobody answers. We call a couple more times. Finally, at 7:30, we get somebody on the phone. At 7:35, the guy says, "No, sorry, we're closing." I said, What time do you close? He said 9. I said, "It's 7:30. He said, "I know, but we're winding down." I said, "You got an hour and a half, and we'll be there in about 10 minutes. We just want to come in and grab a quick bite to eat and get out of there. We'll be long gone by 9 o'clock. Sorry, sir, we won't seat you." I'm like, "No, that's unacceptable." I said to Mrs. Westside, "Jeff, we're going there." We drove there. We walked in. They had empty tables. We said, "Seat us." And he said, "No, we wouldn't seat you." That was just pissed me off. Unacceptable. My question to you is, do you accept those things? Is that okay? Do we just all of a sudden say that's okay today in society, or do you actually speak up and say something? My wife spoke up, sent a note to the owner of the company. He responded that said, "I'm so sorry for this experience. This is not the Hard Knocks way." That's the name of the restaurant. "I would love to give you a gift card for a future visit to Hard Knocks. Please come back and send us a gift card." We're going back to Knoxville in 2 weeks to see her daughter, and then we're going to go up. We're going up to Knoxville, and then we're going to go on a little golf trip about an hour from there. We're going to go back to that place and give it a shot. It's really good pizza and really cool stuff. Looking forward to it. Hopefully, they're a little more hospitable. But do you accept that kind of activity within a restaurant? Have we become numb as a society to those kinds of things? 800-288-9227 is the phone number. 800-288-WBAP. You can also hit me up at Westside Jeff on social media. Again, Westside Jeff and for Chris Krok here in News Talk. And we're talking about customer service in restaurants. 800-288-WBAP. Mike in Arlington, you're on 820 AM. And now, Gilbert, you're in East Dallas. You're on 820 AM and now 93.3 FM WBAP.
Yeah. Hey, Jeff.
Yes.
Oh, I'm like notoriously non-confrontational, but after experiencing what you said, I'm so appalled. I would have just actually started not making a public scene, but really letting my voice be heard, like right there on the spot. I don't know if you did it like that or your wife did, but that's totally unacceptable. I mean, I'm surprised that you're going to go back, and hopefully they will be like nicer this time.
I wasn't mean about it. I wasn't necessarily making a scene, but I stood there and said, "It's 7:40.
Yeah.
You close in 1 hour and 20 minutes. We will be seated, dining, gone by 9 o'clock. And you've got open tables." And they said, "No." I said, "Is it a staffing issue?" He said, "No, we're winding it down." And I was like, no, that's just, somebody's got to speak up and say that's wrong. I get it if it's 5 minutes till. An hour and 20 minutes, unacceptable.
You're right. If it's 5 minutes till, or even 15, whatever, because it takes the cooks, a while to prepare and stuff, and they're already cleaning up. But I've never even heard of that. I don't know, like, why. But
what would you do, Gilbert?
Well, I told this to your. Well, I probably wouldn't go back or spread the news on Google reviews that of what happened and let people decide for themselves. But actually, what I was thinking is if about voicing your opinion. If you're dissatisfied with these, Generation Z that's like, inundating all the work staff. And by the way, they're like zombies. They have no personality anymore. But I would never complain about my food after I got it back or ordered it after seeing that movie Waiting back in the 2000s with Justin Long and Ryan Reynolds. Because I've heard stories about what people do to your food, to the complainers. So, but I don't know. I think it's cool that the higher guy up the food chain gave you like a gift card or whatever to go back. So my question is, you're going to go back again when you visit your daughter?
Yes, we're going to give it a shot. And I just think that was, I just, the human nature of me just tends to think that was a once in a lifetime bad experience, that it's not like that, because I'd been there twice before and never experienced anything like that. And I just don't think any successful business operates that way. You can't. Not and stay open. Not and stay open.
No, not. Hey, real quick, I was going to ask you real quick. Your friend Kendall Milton, you said, is good friends with. You're good friends with?
Yeah, family friend.
Oh, that is awesome. Was he by any chance, friends with Herschel Walker? I'm sure that's probably one of his idols.
It's interesting. Kendall, who played for Georgia, he's a running back. He's going to be up in the NFL draft. When we were in Knoxville, spending some time with him, he did say that a lot of the Georgia running backs, they are on a text chain. Herschel's part of it, and several of the other running backs are too. That they text back and forth on a regular basis. So, and I think, and I've asked him a little more about it, and what he's basically said is some of those older guys who have graduated and gone on the NFL and gone on to careers are picking up and mentoring these young kids on their careers as they go through college and head towards the draft and play in the NFL. And I think that's wonderful and great, because we all need peers. Peer-to-peer leadership.
Absolutely. And I actually met Herschel Walker way back when he was actually playing with, under Tom Landry back in the 80s. And I just, to this day, I still wish that he had more support, maybe from the university or whatever, to win his political race in 2022. I don't know. I'm like, how can you be a Heisman Trophy winner and not gain more support? Because that's like just the star of the university. I mean,
great question. Gilbert, thank you for listening. Thank you for calling.
Yeah,
I appreciate being a listener. My comment on that is this: I don't think we've seen the last of Herschel Walker in the world of politics. That was Gilbert from East Dallas. I'm Westside Jeff, and for Chris Krok. Chris is back on Monday. We're talking about customer service. Excuse me. And the customer service I received at a restaurant in Knoxville, it just appalls me to think that a restaurant would close an hour, basically tell me they're closing down an hour and 20 minutes before their stated closing time, and not seat us to dine. I'm going to give them another shot, because Mrs. Westside Jeff, she's the one that speaks up. She sent an email to the owner and said, that's crap. And the owner sent a very nice note back and said, we want you to come back, and included a gift card. We'll use that in 2 weeks. I'll give them a second chance. And my question to you is, have we come to the point in life where we've just accepted poor customer service and we don't say anything? Would you say something? Have you spoken up before and things like that? My number is 800-288-9227. 800-288-WBAP. I'm also on social media at Westside Jeff. Coming up in about 4 minutes, I just got a note from Lori Waffenschmidt in the newsroom working on a story. She's got an update on bridge work going on in Baltimore, and funding for that and getting that thing back up and running. And also talking about teacher training, I believe, here across the state. Well, apparently 6% of the population are awfully strange, because they admit to doing this with their chocolate Easter bunny. You give me 5 minutes and I'll tell you what this is right after the news break with Lori Waffenschmidt. I'm Westside Jeff, in for Chris Krok on News Talk 820 WBAP. And now on FM at 93.3. So Easter is Sunday. Chris Krok is back on Monday. I'm Westside Jeff, sitting in for Chris. Easter, so apparently 6% of the population are awfully strange, or I guess you might call them weird, because they admit to doing this with their chocolate Easter bunnies. I'll tell you what that is in about 3 minutes. First, I want to recap and come back to the story I was just talking about, and that is customer service. My question to you is this. As customers in restaurants and food outlets, have we gotten numb to the point of poor customer service that we don't say anything? I was in Knoxville about 3 months ago. My youngest daughter lives there. We went after a big football game. We went out to a pizza place. The game ended at 6:45 p.m. Knoxville time. Knoxville's an hour ahead of us. Wife and I, Mrs. Westside, say we want to go get some pizza. Call pizza joint, try to get in. Nobody answers. I said, let's just drive there. On the way there, Finally, somebody answers the phone. And they said, "Sorry, we're closing down." I'm like, "What time do you close?" They said 9 o'clock. I'm like, that's what your signs and everything say. It's 7:20, 7:30. Why? That's an hour and a half. The guy basically denied his service and said, "No, we're closing things down. We don't want to accept new customers." I said, "That's 90 minutes from now. That's not like 30 minutes. It's not like 5 minutes. It's not like now. We can be there, be in and out. We'll be gone by 9 o'clock. I'll help you clean up." The guy was rude. He was mean about it. I said to the wife, we're driving there. Got in front of him, had that same conversation just to make my point. Normally, I would have ended with that, but Mrs. Westside just stewed about over the course of that weekend. Sent an email to the owner of the restaurant. The owner replied and said, "That's not our way of doing business. I apologize. Please come back and send us a gift card. We're going back to Knoxville in 2 weeks for a little mini vacation up there. We're going to give it a shot again. I'll let you know how it goes afterwards." My question to you is, have we become numb to that? Have we gotten to the point where we just accept that in restaurants? Have you? 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. Charlie in Decatur, you're on 820 AM and now 93.3 FM WBAP.
Hey, brother. So my comment on that is, customer service has gone down. Like, I go to McDonald's or Whataburger, and they specialize in burgers. That's their thing. I order a burger, a double quarter pounder with cheese or a double meat Whataburger or whatever, and then lo and behold, I get to the window and like, "Hey, can you pull over to wait line 1 or wait line 2 or whatever?" And I'm like, "Seriously, for a burger? That's what y'all do?" It doesn't make any gosh dang sense, you know. And then you drive off and the order's wrong.
Yeah,
I'm like, y'all have one job. I mean, my gosh, how can you ever progress to a more demanding job if you can't even get that right?
Low skilled employees, my friend. Charlie, when that happens, do you complain? Do you reach out to them afterwards, or do you just accept it and go on?
If I'm by myself, I complain after I get my food. But if my wife's with me, well, it's like with you. Most of the time, I don't know, but she would, hey, Charlie, no, don't. I'm like, but seriously, if I were to perform like that at my job, you know, I wouldn't have a job. And, you know, you look in there and the kids are on their phone. They're just, you know, it's not. When I worked at Whataburger or Waffle House or wherever, Mr. Jim's, you know, I couldn't behave like that. So management has slacked off.
You got to speak up, Charlie. I did. I went to the restaurant, voiced my opinion face to face. My wife did. She followed up with an email, and they sent us a gift card. And that's not what we are trying to do. It was about saying, if you really want to close at 7:30, then close at 7:30 and post that and close at 7:30. But don't tell the world you're closing at 9. Don't come out, put it on your website and put it all over your door and tell your employees you're closing at 9, and then tell people at 7:30 we won't seat you because we're winding it down. Unacceptable.
Yeah, but it all comes down to the management. I mean, the management's there to control the employees, and if they're not going to enforce the rules, you know, so really, I mean, it's not the employees, it's the management, because the employees are going to slack off. They're like you said, they're low-level employees.
Charlie, thanks for calling. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you being a fan of the show. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Have a great night.
You too.
Absolutely. I was talking a moment ago about Easter, and 6% of population are awfully strange. I'll come back to that in 60 seconds. But after that story, I want to talk about a woman that says this one is weird. A woman says she was threatened with being kicked off of a Delta Airlines flight here in flying from Salt Lake City, I think, to LA. And because she was threatened and kicked off, she hired an attorney, Gloria Allred. You've seen Gloria actually representing a lot of clientele, mainly women victims. She hired Gloria Allred as an attorney, and one of the demands is to meet with Delta's president. I'll tell you that story in about 60 seconds or so. But first, back to Easter. So Easter is a big holiday. I had to look it up. Americans will spend about $22 billion on Easter. It's roughly $177 per person. 91 million chocolate bunnies are sold in the U.S. every year. I don't do bunnies anymore. I used to. Now, they actually ask people how they eat their bunnies. 78% of people say they eat chocolate bunnies' ears first. When you eat a chocolate bunny, where do you start? Where's the first bite in that chocolate bunny? When I do, it depends on the size of the bunny. If it's a really, really big one, it might be the ears. If it's a really small one, it just might be the bottom of it. Depends on the chocolate bunny. And depends on if it's solid chocolate or if it's like hollow chocolate. Or it depends on if it's like a Reese cup and has peanut butter inside. So it depends on the specific bunny. 78% of the people said they eat chocolate bunny's ears first. 16% said they eat the feet first. And the weirdos or the strange people, 6% said they always eat the tail first. 6% of the population have said they start with the tail of the bunny. That's where they eat first. This year, Easter Hallmark cards, there were 195 different ones produced. You know, Hallmark, they're famous for coming up with all kinds of cards for holidays. They had 195 different kinds of Easter cards this year. 3 and 4 parents plan on having that talk with their children. Same thing they do around Halloween about eating candy all day long, eating too much. But the other interesting number I saw is 80% of parents admit to occasionally stealing from their kids' stash. I'm one of those. I always took the Reese cups, the Reese's stuff. I took the malted milk balls, and every now and then I grab a jelly bean. Yep, I admit it. 80%. I'm in the majority. Saw a story that stuck out to me about a woman that says she was threatened with being kicked off of a Delta flight. She ended up hiring Gloria Allred as an attorney and demands a meeting with Delta's president. Yeah. Woman gets on a flight, Delta flight. You know, this is a big city here, obviously, with the home of American Airlines and Southwest Airlines. For those of you that work in and around the airline business, my question to you is this. What does it take to get kicked off of a flight? This woman was threatened. She says she was threatened with being kicked off of a Delta Airlines flight. And she's demanded a meeting with the company's top brass. The story came out yesterday. So the question is, what does it take to get kicked off of a flight? She wasn't drunk. She wasn't brandishing a gun. She wasn't threatening people. She wasn't doing anything that was threatening. So why'd she get kicked off of a flight or threatened to kick off of a flight? And why'd she hire an attorney? And why is there demands to meet with the Delta president? This is Delta Airlines flying from Salt Lake City to Los Angeles. Happened in January. I'll tell you what that rest of the story is in about 4 minutes. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Krok on News Talk 820. Chris is back on Monday. If you want to comment on any of this, hit me up across social media. I'm at Westside Jeff on Facebook, on X, and on Instagram. Top of the hour, we're going to have Lori Waffenschmidt with the news. On the other side of that, we've got to talk about the Friday afternoon news dump. And we'll talk about what's going on in Dallas with prostitution. But in 4 minutes, I'll tell you why a woman says she was threatened to be kicked off a Delta Airlines flight. She's hired an attorney once, demanded a meeting with the top boss, the president of Delta Airlines. That's in 4 minutes. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Krok on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. It's Good Friday, coming into Easter weekend. Big basketball game going on here in town with Houston and Duke right next door at American Airlines Center. And Chris Krok is back on Monday. I'm Westside Jeff, sitting in for Chris. Chris is taking a couple of days off and enjoying time with family and friends, and he'll be back on Monday. So I saw a story that just sticks out to me that I got to ask you the question, that is, what does it take to get kicked off of a flight before it takes off? I would think, obviously, somebody so drunkenly stupid, they're obnoxious, and they're making a scene. I would think threats. I would think physical abuse. I would think maybe lashing out, verbal abuse. I would think a lot of things it takes to get kicked off of a flight. So a woman who says she was threatened with being kicked off of a Delta flight, it was a U.S. flight here in the United States, so it wasn't international, it was a Delta flight. And it's because she said she was not wearing a bra. She demanded a meeting with the company's top boss, that was yesterday, over what she says is a discriminatory policy. Her name's Lisa Archibald. She said she had on baggy jeans and a loose white t-shirt. There are pictures associated with this story that I saw online, a couple of them. And she was wearing baggy jeans and a loose white t-shirt, but with no bra. And claimed she was temporarily escorted off of a flight by a female gate agent who demanded she cover up, even though her breasts, her boobs, were not visible. So the female gate agent said, "You're dressed inappropriately," pulled her off a flight. Now, Lisa Archibald, the passenger, said, "It felt like a scarlet letter was being attached to me." She told reporters that. She said, "I felt like it was a spectacle aimed at punishing me for not being a woman in the way that the gate agent thought I should be a woman as she was scolding me outside the plane." Archibald is a DJ who was flying from Salt Lake City. It's a very conservative area. If you know anything about Salt Lake, it's a very, very conservative state. Flying to San Francisco, which obviously is a very liberal community. She claims the Delta agent said her attire was, quote unquote, revealing and offensive, and that airline policy was not to allow passengers dressed that way to travel. But the agent said if she put on a jacket over her t-shirt, she would be allowed to continue her journey. I got to ask a question. This is a big airline market, obviously. Are we at the point where we're really we're pulling a female patient off a plane and saying, you've got to put on something over top of your shirt so your nipples aren't showing out? Really? And tell them they can't fly? I got to tell you, as I walk through stores, have you been in a Walmart lately? You know what people there are wearing? You go out grocery stores, I'll go to a grocery store and I'll walk through and I'll stop and look at somebody what they're wearing and I'm like, oh my God. And it's not just braless. It's pants dangling down below the crack of their butt. It's way too much skin showing. There's a lot of things. I've seen a lot of things of people dressed inappropriate in public. But the thought of a gate agent on a Delta flight pulling a 20-something-year-old woman off of a flight because she's nipping out, she's wearing a loose white t-shirt and no bra, I was like, what? Really? Really? Would you do that? Is that real? Is that something that truly happens? Is that a real problem today? Listen, a lot of folks that work for Southwest and America and listen to the station, I'd love to hear from you at 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. I see worse in every store I go into. I see worse in restaurants. Now, Gloria Allred said she had written to Delta on behalf of Archibald demanding a meeting with the company's president to discuss the discriminatory policy. Allred goes on to say male passengers are not required to cover up their t-shirts with a shirt or a jacket. Well, duh. I get that, Gloria. They said they also do not have to wear bras to board or remain on a plane, and women should not have to do that either. Interesting story. Lady gets pulled off a plane because she's not wearing a bra. That is overreach, if you ask me. This isn't just an airline story to me or a story that only pertains to women. Take a stroll through any Walmart and you'll see what I'm talking about. What have you seen? What have you experienced? Clothes that people are wearing in public places. I've seen a lot. Grocery stores, restaurants, bars, clubs, retail stores. I've seen worse. Love to hear from you across social media. I'm at Westside Jeff.